I'd like to give a shout out to our newest sponsor, Solutions Today Supplemental Insurance. If you're a competitor in the cage, in the boxing ring, put your body on the line every time you compete, you can get cut, you could break a leg, a finger, who knows, put you out of work. It sucks. They'll provide you with 24/7, 365 days a year supplemental insurance covering everything from hospital stays, fractures, outpatient surgery, recovery benefits, family plans, and more. They pay out in addition to all other insurance, including WSIB, employment insurance, and your work benefits. Qualification is easy. No medical test or exam needed. No occupational restrictions and no income verification. Head on over to solutionstoday.ca and get coverage for you and your family. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank my sponsor, Rycor Countertops. They deal in custom countertops in quartz, Corian, Meganite, laminate, and butcher block. They also have custom kitchen cabinetry, closets, laundry rooms, and millwork. They're family owned and operated for 18 years, knowledgeable and highly experienced staff, and friendly customer service. Head on over to 1069 Clark Road. Check out their showroom today. Welcome to Studio 88. Today, my special guest is Kara Rowe. 17-0, professional boxer, two-time champion, also the voice of the PFC. She's my commentator, who is outstanding. Lots of skill set in the gym, but I would like the reason for bringing you in today is because most people don't know this about you. They think I just hired a girl to do commentating, but really you have a lot of credentials.
So typical, you hired a blonde.
I hired a blonde, and really what it was is I kind of want to get to know you. I mean, I kind of see you in passing. I see you at the shows, and it's a very professional atmosphere, but I want people to kind of know who they're dealing with and who they when we talk to each other. So bring us back. Let's go back to the boxing days, how it all started for you.
Well, for me, actually, my first year university, I met my boyfriend at the time, my university boyfriend, and he was a Windsor Spitfire. I'm sure people from the London area won't appreciate that, but he was a Spitfire, and he was supposed to be an enforcer. And I signed with the Florida Panthers, so, looking great going towards the NHL. And they were building a team of enforcers. So this is back at Jovanovski, and these are the guys that were playing for them at the time. And some of his teammates were doing really well on the ice fighting. I mean, it's changed so much since then. This is 95 I'm talking about. And so I had suggested, to me, whenever you have a weakness, okay, find somebody who has a strength of that and figure out what they're doing, and then you can excel at it. And so his teammates like DJ Smith and Adam Young, these names were doing tremendous on the ice. And so we went to a boxing gym. I said, let's just go try it out. This is what they're doing. This is why they fight well on the ice. And that was like my first
So it wasn't for you?
It wasn't for me at all. Wow. I was a varsity volleyball athlete. I was playing for the University of Windsor Lancers, and I was a volleyball player. And after my first day of boxing, I couldn't move for 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, I'm a varsity athlete. How am I this sore? This is impossible. And I was hooked right from the start. Like, if something could challenge me like that, I wanted to keep pursuing it. So I had no intention of fighting. I was never a street fighter. That wasn't in my realm of activities growing up. It just, the strategy and the demands of boxing, I just fell in love with. So essentially I went from there, and I spent 2 years in Windsor. And then I went to Detroit. I wanted to turn pro, and I spent my last year playing volleyball for the university, and I was the captain. And I just said, you know what, I'm ready to move on and just pursue boxing full time.
Wow. So what's your amateur career record?
I think about 14 or 15-1, and then I had
fights.
about between 150 or 200 underground fights, like smokers kind of thing.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it was
That's
a
like
lot.
a TIE
It was
Fighters
every
fight.
week.
That's a TIE Fighters record, 200 plus fight. That's amazing.
And so then just decided to turn pro. Like, I was with Kronk at the time, and Emmanuel Stewart was like, you better prove to me that, you're worthy of turning pro. I want you to stop this girl. And so I was like, all right, done. I want to be a professional athlete. It's my dream my whole life. So I just went out and stopped the girl, and he was like, okay, you can turn pro. It wasn't just nowadays that people just get a license to turn pro, but it was kind of something you earned. I mean, people had a ton of amateur fights or experience before turning pro. And so he gave me the thumbs up, and I was like ready to go.
What was it like training in Detroit?
Heaven. I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved every second of it. It was real. People would eat, sleep, breathe boxing. Like that was their whole world. It wasn't like something you go to school all day or you work all day and then you go as like recreational. it was just, this is what you do, like, for a living. Everyone had, your side hustle, however you make money. But you were pursuing a dream, and everyone out there was pursuing a dream. And it was a battle. I mean, you walked in.
I couldn't imagine being a white girl from Windsor.
Yeah. Well,
You
I
know?
mean, luckily, I think to my advantage, I was Canadian, and color wasn't a thing for me. I mean, I grew up in Sudbury, Ontario, and it was just like everyone was the same. And so going into that gym where I was the only female, I was the only white person, it didn't really do anything for me. Like, I didn't think, oh my God, I don't belong. I just was like, let me get in here and prove myself. And so
Yeah.
I just busted my butt day in and day out, fought every day. It's very different. Like, we sparred every day. You get in there, you say, who am I boxing today? They point someone out. You get in the ring.
Yeah.
Everyone stands around. The walls are sweating. You have the old timers that are sitting there screaming at you, and all your teammates and coaches are sitting around the ring, and you're just watching two people battle. Like, it was
Wow.
a crazy environment.
Yeah. The State's a lot different to do boxing than it is Canada. I
Yeah,
bet,
very different. Very
more
different.
opportunity.
Much more opportunity. I feel like it really, opens up. There's a lot more shows. You have a lot more connections and contacts, but it's taken as like, not as you're getting kids out of trouble, so you send them to this class or whatever. Like, people are pursuing this as a career. So it was just very different.
Wow. Now, you coach a lot of guys.
Yeah. I feel like
Do
they're
you
all
wanna
my
name?
kids.
Can you name them off for us?
Well, I'm exhausted today just alone. When I was
bet.
driving here, I was getting all stiff because I have Kadey Stamen, who's
UFC fighter Kadey Stamen. In case you're living under a rock,
UFC fighter Kadey Stamen. I was with him.
he's fighting Saturday.
Yes,
actually.
I had a double yesterday with him. We worked out this morning, and then Darren Cruikshank. So I have Kadey Stamen. I have TJ and Tony Laramie coming up this next weekend, and then I'm Jared Brooks. Was out of the UFC as well, and Darren Cruikshank, and I have those guys fighting in Japan, so I have to head to Japan the end of December.
What's that like, Japan?
You know what? It was very different. It was very different. It's a long flight, which is,
yeah.
when you have kids, it's almost a flight as a break.
Yeah, it wasn't a break.
I could watch movies and things, but when we went there, it was just, I guess for me, a little anticlimactic. It wasn't like when you go to, I don't know. I like different, you've been to Montreal or been to, Vegas or different places like that. There's a lot going on. It was very reserved in Japan. It was very different.
They look at fights a lot different over there. Right?
Yeah, that was interesting to say the least. That when you come out for Ryzen and you're walking, kind of like a WWE start, as you walk this long runway, and there's a light show and everything else, but it's kind of like golf clapping. Like, nobody. It's very rare to be an event. I've been at a ton of UFC events and cornered a ton of fighters. And, you're yelling over crowds and you're yelling over the coaches and everyone else. In Japan, you could hear a pin drop. Like, they will watch it. No talking, no clapping, no noise, no yelling. It is so bizarre.
I like it that way, though. I think you should. That's the best way to take in a fight, is quietly.
It was really interesting. I don't know. It depends on the kind of fighter you are. If you derive energy from the crowd, you kind of want to hear that, you'll be impacted if you hear boos, or you'll be impacted if you hear cheers or your name. And so it just depends on kind of how the fighter you are, or how much you listen to your coaches, if you want to hear the corner, if that's really important to you. So
yeah, Cruikshank is one of probably one of my favorite fighters to watch. Because he's completely unorthodox. And like, I've seen videos of him just like punishing your legs and like,
I have bruises all the time. Right here, I kicked in the face, but it was the Canadian me that got kicked. I hit him in the face, boom, and then I put my hands down. I was like, oh, sorry, bink. You know what I mean? Like, it was really. We go toe to toe. That's why I'm sore. I had Kadey this morning. We were going toe to toe. Then I had Darren, and it's just, high intensity, and really work on athleticism. So that's a big component, and Darren is a freak. I mean, in terms of athletes, this is a guy that can run up the wall and he'll do backflips, and I can make him do anything and everything. Just challenge him and challenge his body constantly.
First time I met him was at a hotel at a fight. I think he was in Burlington, and he came to our hotel room, and we hear boom, 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 boom on the door, and I opened the door and he had a monster mask on, and he's like, "Rah!" And I was like, hey, I didn't even know, I had no idea who it was until he ripped it off, and I was like, oh shit, it's Darren Cruikshank.
He's forever Peter Pan. Like,
he's legitimately wild.
Yeah, and the nicest person you'll ever meet too, which is so bizarre because I think he's one of across the planet, he is one of the best strikers, stand-up fighters, exciting. Than you'll ever see. He should be in movies. And so just to think that he's that kind of cool and docile and, really chill. It's
Yeah.
kind of
Love the
funny.
mustache too.
Yeah.
He's got a
Yeah.
cool mustache. So what got you into training these guys? Like, I mean, you got an exceptional career, 2-time champion, 17-0, which is like beyond impressive. And then now you coach. What stopped you from boxing?
I had a back injury, severe back injury. I was actually cutting weight, and I had to do a photo shoot before a fight, and I cut weight kind of for 2-in-1 for a photo shoot, and then I was still training for a big fight, and so just being completely dehydrated and training. Like typically when you dehydrate yourself, you're not doing very much, like those last few days before weigh-ins. But I still had to train. I had to cut weight for a photo shoot, then train on top of that. And essentially my vertebrae just like kind of seized up like raisins, and they slipped out of my back. And I had 2 bulging and a herniated bulging discs and stuff like that. So I literally couldn't walk for periods of time. So it was really severe for about 1.5 years. And
What got you into training?
Coaching other people. I've always been a teacher, I think, my whole life. It doesn't matter, what the circumstance, whether I was teaching swimming or first aid and CPR. I've always kind of had that strength is bringing out the best in somebody else. And so I just started, with teammates, you start working on stuff, you start seeing things. And then it was, always helping out boxers. Like when I was in Detroit, it was always like I would take, them out to eat, or I would do little things with the kids because I didn't have much. And so then you start helping them or coaching them. And it really went from there, from being in the gyms and trying to help out the kids. And then my Kronk team, we had like 23 guys. I mean, and everyone went very high. But at the time it was like, we were all a team, and then I was one of the older people, so I was helping, the kids and things like that. And so you kind of got into it from there. And then from that standpoint, I was approached, one of my very good friends in Michigan, James Lee. He was a pride fighter. He was like, he's been through the full gamut. And he had started, can you work with some of my guys on their hands? And then I started doing that in Detroit. And then it just kind of rolled, like people.
It's very popular in the Canadian community. People know, like, TJ trains with you, Tony trains with you.
Yeah,
to
that
develop their
started
hands.
from Michigan, though. Like, they started coming to Michigan to see me, right? Because they were training with Cody Stamen, UFC fighter, and then they started working with me there first. And then I was like, well, you guys, we live in the same city. I can come, to you. And Reno's done an amazing job with MTC. So many great fighters come out of there. And so we all started coordinating our times.
Wow. So this isn't even your full-time gig.
No, well, actually, my radio show, I had a radio show on AM 1290 out of London and AM 800 out of Windsor and Detroit, but it just concluded. So it was about 3 years. It just concluded like a week and a half
TKO?
ago.
Was it the TKO show?
Yeah, the TKO show.
Okay.
And it literally, for me, was a huge blessing that it finished. I was in California for a week with a boxer. I fought on this. There was this massive, people might have heard of it. Well, you and I wouldn't know because we're old. But the young kids, they like the YouTube stuff, right? And so they had the Logan Paul KSI fight as the main event. One of my guys, who was an MMA fighter, he's also a YouTube star. So he had a chance to be on the card too. So he essentially told me, he's like, you have to train me for this. And I said, you've been out of town. I'm not cornering you if I've been working with you. And he said, I'll come back in town, please. They don't want to approve it unless...
What's his name?
Josh Bruckner.
Okay.
So they won't approve it unless you're my coach because you have the credentials, not me. So I was like, okay. He came in town and we worked together for a few weeks before we went down there. And it was tremendous. But when I was there, I was missing a week of work. And I just thought, you get to the point where you have to choose. And so the night before, it was a Wednesday night, I met with a promoter who contacted me and said, I need you to train my heavyweight. He's coming off a loss. I need you to train him. He's looking at like $1 million paydays. I need your expertise. I said, okay, I'll do it. The next day I went to work and they laid off like 10 different people.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, man, it was just like, the clouds open, the skies parted, and just said, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Like, this is, I used to always say I wanted to be, the female Tony Robbins and go around and motivate people and help people. And it's kind of turned into, I want to be the Phil Jackson of striking, I want to. So it's just, I'm very busy, like, in terms of coaching, and that's kind of where I'm headed.
It's amazing how one door closes and then really it always works out for the better.
Yeah. And I'm big on that too. I've gone through a lot of, really tumultuous times in my life. And if it wasn't for knowing that mentality and my faith, it would be hard to pull through.
Yeah. You seem very resilient.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Have to be.
Yeah, I bet. So we got fights coming up next weekend. It's like fight week, so it's like stressful. And you'll be commentating again, but this time with Robin Black.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
going to be really cool. I think it's a good matchup between you with you guys on the mic. Do you like commentating?
I love commentating.
Mm.
I mean, I announce quite often,
Mhm.
quite a bit, but I prefer commentating because that's kind of, I feel like it's just me coaching while I'm watching
Mhm.
and, describing to people what I see. So it's good for, people that maybe already know the sport or a little bit about it. They maybe learn something new or they're in line with what I'm thinking, and people who don't know, because that's the great thing about regional shows sometimes is you're pulling in people who have never watched the stuff before, or
Mhm.
people that are maybe watching online. They have never watched, but they're there to support, whoever they're watching.
Yeah.
And so I like to give that opportunity for them to kind of understand a little bit, because a lot of people look at maybe boxing or MMA and they're like, it's barbaric. I don't understand it. It's just a street fight. But when you start to understand the strategy, you can fall in love with it. And then you
Mhm.
want to follow along and you want to watch more. And I think it gives an opportunity to kind of share the passion for the sport.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time, because I get these emotional attachments with the fighters. I wish everybody could see or feel the same way I felt when I see a fight. I've cried during fights, seeing somebody lose that I know really, really well, and you feel terrible, and it's trying to capture that same emotion, but get the crowd to feel the same way. It was
Mhm.
kind of a reason for the podcast there. And it's not working yet, but ultimately it's to try to get to know behind the scenes who's who, and what they do in their daily lives and what they do. And I've gotten a lot of praise for actually having a female commentator,
Yeah.
which is kind of weird because
Yeah.
I don't really look at it as a
Yeah.
having a female commentator. I look at it as I have a 17-0 female boxing champion. So
Yeah.
I really just wanted people to kind of know, your backstory and everything too, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. So I was actually coaching. My very first coaching opportunity was a girl named Mary Spencer. She represented Canada in the Olympics. We won several world championships together, and that was back in 2003. I started with her out of
Mhm.
Windsor. And but then 2004 I started broadcasting, and I was with the OHL, and we would start doing interviews, and I commentated the Olympics for TSN
Oh wow.
in 2012. It was the
Mhm.
first time women's boxing was, it was their inaugural season,
Mhm.
so first time ever in the Olympics. So I've been doing it a long time, but I have the benefit of both, because I think sometimes it depends on who's commentating, but you have kind of a broadcaster, or you have a fighter, or you have, like, you know what I mean? I've had the
Mhm.
opportunity of being a fighter. I'm a high level coach, and I have a broadcasting background. So
Mhm.
luckily I can merge it all together. And so I get to talk about what I love to do, and I have it from all different sides of feeling what it is to be in there fighting, feeling what it is to be in the corner at big time UFC events, you know what I mean? And then for broadcasting for
Yeah. So
Canada.
you're ready
So
for the pay-per-view then?
yeah, I'm ready. Let's
Yeah.
go.
So this is kind of like an official announcement. We're just sort of be live on pay-per-view, which is a lot of pressure for all of us. So we got to watch what we say and do, and make sure everything the timeline goes right. So I'm pretty excited for that.
Well, I think the product is deserving of it too. I
Mhm.
mean, the last I've been with you the last couple of shows, and I mean, it's a tremendous show. I
Mhm.
mean, you don't typically see so much equality when it comes to a fight. Because
Mhm.
I've been doing fights all over North America, and
Mhm.
it just depends on the organization. It depends on what you're going to see. Where you're seeing, a fight, and what makes a fight exciting. That's why even that YouTube fight. I was watching the main event at Staples Center, and it was like, you know it was rough in terms of technique, but they were so equal that it was exciting for people to watch. And I feel
Mhm.
like that's what you bring to the table, with Prospect, is that the equality and the
Mhm.
matchups are very exciting
I
for
think I
people to
have the
watch.
best matchmakers in the country.
Yeah, I mean,
Hands
that's
down.
tremendous. Yeah,
Hands down. Shout
it's
out to Woodrow James and Alex Caparici.
God.
Always.
Woody and I go way back.
How do you know Woody?
Well, I originally started commentating with XCC, which
Mhm.
is something from 10 years ago, and Woody was associated with that, and he would
Mhm.
help match up. We would have these enormous shows between. It would be kind of like Sarnia
Canada
slash
Border Wars.
Border
Canada versus
Wars,
US.
and I
Yeah.
mean, we would get our first lineup, the first like 12, 15 fights. And then Woody would come back and he would give you the next sheet. Okay, we have 15 more fights. And then the next sheet. I mean, we would be there for hours and hours and hours, and people were so into it and they were so invested. And we would get,
Mhm.
so many fights at the time, because it was really the only organization doing it.
Mhm.
And then, you started to move forward, and there's other ones that came in, some left, some stayed, kind of
Mhm.
just the ebb and flow of the scene.
It's a really hard business. It's a
Yeah,
tough
of
business, and I
course.
mean it.
Anything in entertainment. I
Yeah,
mean,
but it's entertainment, but it's balancing, making sure everybody's happy. Everybody comes in, and then you have to give them a good show. You have to stay
yeah.
relevant. You gotta keep the fighters happy. And I mean, dealing with a fighter, just one fighter is hard enough, let alone dealing with 22 of them or
Well, your job,
24 of
yeah,
them.
is way more difficult
Hmm.
than mine in terms of that because you want to keep certain clubs happy.
Hmm.
You don't want to overmatch their guys necessarily. They're trying to build their guys, but you want to give a good
Hmm.
show to your fans. So it is a
Hmm.
definitely a balancing act.
I think that a lot of that has to do with one, my matchmakers know exactly what they're doing, and they're professionals, and they've been doing it a long time. But the commission is really good here. It used to
Yeah,
be bad back in the day, like with Ken Hayashi. It was bad because everything you gave him, wouldn't approve of
reject.
it. He would
Yeah.
reject it. Um, Whereas the new commissioner now, he understands the sport. He's been in the game a long time, um, so it's a lot easier to do the matchups. But really, you can't really mismatch in Ontario.
You can't at all. I mean, and I've seen the ultimate mismatches through
Mhm.
my
I've
career,
seen a
but
ton of them. I've seen them
yeah,
like, how does that even happen? But it's
yeah.
not exciting,
Yeah,
you know?
no, it's not great for
Mhm.
it depends on who you're doing it for. You really have to have your objective and your bottom line. What do you want? What do you want the outcome to be? And
Mhm.
then you have to work off of that. If you want it to build an organization that people know it has credibility and fans will come time
Mhm.
after time because they know they're going to get a good show, then you have to look at those like even matchups,
Yeah,
right?
because I've heard of promotions being lackluster because of that. Because oh, it's the same gym.
One-sided.
It's all one sided. All their guys, all their guys are gonna win. They're bringing in bums. It's not gonna work.
Mhm.
Which I mean, I've been very lucky because I do have a lot of good people around me that know the sport. Reno's another guy. He's got a huge stable of guys.
I just have for Reno in particular, I just have so much respect for it because there's a few coaches out there. I mean, I really appreciate what coaches do because it's so much work, it's so much
Hmm.
dedication, and everyone's been like just hurt by a fighter, you know. And but he has always been willing, to say, okay, do you want to if you want to work with Kara, you can work with Kara. Like I've had a few coaches that are like that, like, hey, go
Hmm.
work with this person on this. And where some coaches are so possessive of their
They
athletes,
have
they
to be
don't
the
want
one
them
in
to grow,
charge.
right? Because
Yeah.
that's their identity, and they feel like if they go elsewhere and they like what they see, they're going to leave
Hmm.
them. And so, but Reno's been very good of like, what do you need? What are your needs? Do you need to go to camp? Do you need to work with this person? Like,
Hmm.
he's very good at like, hey, you feel like you could grow more here, or you're
Hmm.
missing this, then go get it.
Yeah,
So I
he's
really
another one that has
appreciate
a
that.
full-time job and does the
Yeah,
same thing.
yeah,
I think all of us in the industry don't just do this. We
yeah,
all have something else that we're doing on the side about, but whether it's balancing family, kids, wife, spouses, and
yeah.
then your full-time job,
It's
and
better
then
than drinking at a bar every night
it's
or
true.
gambling.
Yeah, it's true. But it's a constant grind. You
Yeah,
know.
it is. It definitely is. But I mean, I think you appreciate it too when something good comes together. You know how hard work it is to
Hmm.
actually put this together. So, see, I wear different hats when there's a fight. So, if there are circumstances where I am announcing or commentating, but I have an athlete fighting, I mean, it's really tricky to manage all that and all that emotion. And
Hmm.
I mean, I'm very close with my fighters too. They're like my family. You know what I mean? We're very, very close. I write them. A lot of them will say, "Hey, that's my second mom," because I'm
Yeah.
on them. Or they'll post something and I'm like, "Take it down now." You know what I mean? This is like you're a
Yeah.
business person too when you're a professional, and so they'll hear me discipline them in different ways, and it's
Hmm.
very tough. Like there's been fights I love them so much and I want them to succeed and do well, but I
Hmm.
put on my coaching hat like when we're in the corner and after a fight. If I'm disappointed, they know. Like that's their biggest thing is not disappointing me and making sure they give me their best performance
Hmm.
because I give my athletes so much. Most people have seen, my videos with my athletes where I'm doing pads and like they're kicking and punching and I'm pushing them and so they give that back to me and I think that's uh one of the things that's cool, like I know when you talk about prospect and being a promoter, you talk a lot about how much you care about them and you want them to succeed. And I think that's what a lot of us. I think all the good people that are in these sports and the coaches and stuff, they really want these people to succeed as people too.
Because that's success for me.
Hot
Like
1000%.
I
Yeah,
see it as, yeah, I'd love to create a memory.
hmm,
I want them to go look back and go, that guy really took care of me,
yeah,
or he actually gave a shit. I don't want them to walk away with a bad taste in their mouth. I don't want them to think that the promoter's all about money. I mean, if this was a money sport, I mean, everybody would be doing it. It's
yeah,
it's not a money sport, unfortunately. I mean, you hope that it will be because who doesn't want to get paid for what they love to do, but it's the journey along the way.
You have to have, to me, a lot of mental strength
Mm-hmm.
because you can get jaded so quickly. Whether you're a coach, you're a promoter, you're a matchmaker, whatever the case may
Mm-hmm.
be, it's very easy. It's like a breakup. People can get jaded against, dating, so to
Yeah.
speak. Bad boyfriend, bad girlfriend, and
Yeah.
same thing here. You could run across some bad people, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to stay positive and still stay true to what you want to achieve out of
Mm-hmm.
the sport, right?
Leading up to every show, I always end up saying, "Oh, I can hate MMA. I hate it. I don't want to do
Yeah,
this anymore. I hate this.
it's so much work.
It's so much. It's stressful because I can't keep everybody happy. And some people, they are who they are. They can't be pleased, or they're prima donnas. They need. There's no loyalty. So sometimes I get I.
Now, how tough is that for you? Because when I look at the TJs and Tony Laramie's and, who have been your, main event or co-main
Mhm,
event, and these are tremendous athletes. I work with hundreds of athletes, and to
mhm,
see like kind of the skill set, what each individual brings to the table, and they're going to soar. They're going to, sign a USC contract one day. That's the
mhm.
expectation. How tough is that? When you build them up and I gotta let him go,
I
kind of
love
thing.
that.
Do you?
I
Okay.
get excited for
Because
that.
that's tough. It's tough,
I li- I want that. I truly do. I really want to see somebody flourish, be successful, take it to the next level. I guess it's ego, or take a little bit of pride maybe in me that says I was a part of that. I
Yeah.
helped that person get there, or if I didn't get them that fight, or that time to showcase how good they were, maybe they wouldn't get there. Or it's just cool to be um, the driving force, to be able to give them the platform without
Hmm.
um, taking from them. I don't want nothing from them.
Yeah.
I just want them to loyalty. Obviously, I would love for them to be loyal with me, but at the same time, I would never hold anybody back. Like if I say, let's say for example, I signed somebody to a 3-fight contract, and a big opportunity came up for them, I would never hold them to that.
Yeah.
I would never say, no, you owe me one more fight, or um, no, we can't do this. I would let a guy go in a second if the opportunity was better for them.
Yeah. And not everyone thinks like that,
Mhm.
right? Just like I was saying, there are coaches that aren't like that, but you find like you start to find the people that are more like you or that have that mindset.
Mhm.
And
It's a growing process for sure,
yeah.
and I'm every day, every time, every event is different. I mean, there's 15 events for me total, and every single one of them has been different.
Yeah, and that's why you almost have to have flexible expectations.
I learned to not have
Yeah.
expectations.
Well, I think you have to like recognizing a win. Okay, well this didn't go as planned, but this is a huge win because this
Mhm,
happened. It's like kind of pulling out finding the silver lining, finding the win. And I'll do that, quite often
mhm.
out of a fight. If a guy doesn't fight to my expectation, I have certain expectations and that's why they get stressed out or I don't speak to an athlete after a fight sometimes
Really?
even if they win.
Wow, you're a hard ass.
Yeah, I kind of am. But I mean, I see the potential in them and I want them to see it in themselves, right? Because
Mhm,
not everyone really believes in themselves. And if I believe in them and I have these expectations, I set that expectation, they try to live up to it. So some people
mhm,
work better for themselves, doing something for themselves. Some people work better doing something for others. And so if I set that bar high and I'm like, I know you're capable of this, stop questioning yourself. They know after a performance, like, sorry, you know what? I should have done that. And then the next time they do because
mhm.
they started to see.
Now,
So
is this something that is your natural character, or is this something the way you grew up with being trained? Like, did you get the same kind of?
No. No, I think this is just who I am. It's always been like I can pick out in terms of coaching, I think I have such a variety of athletes because my coaching style is okay, like I do pads. So if you watch Darren Cruikshank's feed or someone like that,
Mhm,
you'll see me doing pads. And I do it even initially when I meet someone because I'm like, I need to know your punching power. I need to know your space. I need to know what your strengths and your weaknesses are because I want to exploit your strengths and then we're going to work your weaknesses. So everyone I
mhm,
train different. If you're a tall fighter, if you're depending on what you bring to me, I'm going to
mhm,
train you completely different than I'm going to train somebody else. I think being a female, I had that advantage where you kind of were always sometimes a half step back trying to get ahead. There was always a guy that was faster or stronger. You weren't like the person, like a guy can walk in the gym and he will be faster than everybody there
mhm,
or, stronger than everyone there or more skilled. It was kind of like there was always a guy that came forward that I had to box that it's the other thing in Ontario, say spar, but we say box because it's a battle in the States. But So I had an opportunity to be, I was either tall or I was short, or I had to be faster. So I had those opportunities where I was always something different. It wasn't always
Mhm.
what I would have been with females. Like if I was only sparring females that were around my weight, I would always have been tall, the tall, skinny one,
Mhm.
right? Whereas with guys, it was always something different. So I train everyone completely differently. And so I think I could see sometimes what they're capable of more than they are. Because when I do pads and I can feel your punching power,
Mhm.
or I've told, like I worked with the fighter, the one that I brought to, to the Staples Center and has first shot on me. And I was like, dude, you're 200 pounds and you can't crack an egg. We got to change everything. Like
Wow.
that would be something I would say because I
It's the
know with his
truth.
body type. Yeah, because I can
Mhm.
feel it. Or I'll tell somebody, dude, you can crack. Like you for real. Like you are just heavy handed.
Mhm.
Like a Tony Laramie. How are you 125 and you punch like a 200-pound
Yeah.
kid? You know? And then on the reverse, you have TJ, whose like strengths are just his aggressiveness and willing to like smell blood and go for the kill.
Mhm.
Like you have to see what each person brings to the table. So
There's
then you coach them a certain way.
yeah, there's a definite difference between TJ and Tony.
100%.
Like
100%.
even TJ himself, when I had him on the podcast, and he said the same thing. I go, how are you different from your brother? His brother Tony is a bite down. I'm coming. It don't matter. I'm not stopping. There's no he doesn't have any recourse for his actions. He just doesn't care. He's bringing the fight, and whereas TJ's very calculated. He's gonna, you know, he's patient. I think he knows he's going for the W.
Yeah, I think like once he gets you down, he's going to try and end it. Like
Mhm.
and that I appreciate because some of the fighters get the guy down and they just like ride it out,
Mhm.
whereas TJ looks, to
Mhm.
take you out on a ground and pound. Yeah, Tony has a little bit of like what we all had when we were kids, like,
Yeah.
invincible, just
Yeah.
like I can't get hurt. I'm going to go forward. He has so much confidence in himself as he should. He's kind of a freak. He's kind of an elite, like what they would have seen with
Mhm.
Wayne Gretzky when he was young skating and playing hockey. I mean, I
Mhm.
think that he's just kind of naturally gifted in a lot of areas.
Mhm.
They're very different personality wise too. Very,
Yeah.
very different.
Absolutely. When we were talking about the PSO stuff with the government, we actually wrote into our policies an exceptional athlete clause, and it was basically based off just because of Tony, because he was a kid, 16 years old, and he was smashing everybody.
Right.
He was beating everybody up. And then I remember one of the referees at the time had said to me, he got matched up with an older gentleman who was like in his 30s. And then Tony was 16 at the time, and it was in Windsor. And the guy looked at me and he goes, "What the fuck is this? Why? Like, what is this matchup? He's a kid.
Right.
You're putting a kid against a grown man." And I go, "Just watch. You gotta just watch. You gotta trust me on it. I wouldn't match this up if I thought this kid was gonna get hurt.
Right.
Neither would Reno. Neither would anybody put him in there for that matter." And Tony just came out and smashed. He's a fucking animal.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. They both really are. Truthfully, like I just but they're different. Just so
Mhm.
different.
I'm
But,
excited to see them in 5 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, TJ's done that quite a few times. For belts and things like that.
Mhm.
Maybe gone that distance. I think, I just was with them a couple of days ago. I'm with them tomorrow,
Mhm.
and I mean, their cardio's there. I mean, they're ready. Like I pushed them hard for 5 rounds. Just I'm just a supplement to Reno and MTC.
Mhm.
But just getting a chance to see where they're at. If they're ready for that, and they're both ready for 5, 100%.
Yeah,
It's
it's incredible.
no, it's exciting. It's and we'll see those guys. We'll see them in the UFC for
Mhm.
sure. They
Do you
should
ha-
stay on track.
Is there anybody that you ever don't like holding pads for, but just because they hit so goddamn hard?
I think initially with Darren Cruikshank, because for me, I came from a boxing background, right? And so I was sharpening everyone's hands, and everyone's hands were looking like really good because I'm very OCD. I'm like, I can't even really enjoy fights because I'm like breaking it down. When you watch on TV and things like that. But I think initially it was like I didn't know where stuff was coming from. There would be elbows, kicks, and I would be, luckily I had fought, so I would slip stuff, block. But we're so gelled now, it's great. Like we just push each other, we'll hit each other, we kick each other. I mean, there's chemistry there, big time. There are guys like even when I first was working with TJ, he didn't know his range, and so I would hold, and he would like almost blow my. And I never have. A lot of people have pains in their elbows or shoulders, and I never do because I teach range and how to hit someone at the end of their punch and use their leverage. But when I first working with someone who can punch, but they don't know their range, they blow your arm back. And you have to. It's more of like teaching them the right way to do it. Don't fall on your front foot. Don't crowd yourself. Don't smother yourself. You see a lot of guys that are great, but then they smother their punches and things like that.
Mhm.
And so I think it was more initially I had to adapt a system to do punches and kicks and spinning back fists and elbows and knees, things that I'd never done. And that challenged me as a coach because I was a striking coach, but hands only. And then Darren Cruikshank went to Ryzen. And I really felt like when I was watching it, he was just very hand dominant, whereas he's got beautiful kicks.
Oh, he does.
And so after that fight, I was like, you know what? It's not enough for him. I have to level up as a coach, like in order for him to level up, right? And so I started studying crazy stuff, YouTube videos, getting the guys to do pads with me, just watching them, and I could analyze like the footwork and the movement and the hips and knees and where your elbows should be and things like that. I started like really studying it so that I could bring all the other elements to the table. So I think that was the hardest thing, like who I didn't really want to do stuff with because, there would be wanting to throw kicks or wanting to do this and maybe throw them randomly. But then now I've just implemented my own like coaching system to where I have calls for all of those things and we can put it all together. So there are some guys that do like like Bobby Nash. He used to be in the UFC before he came to us at Top Team and punches hard. Like there's guys that are just heavy-handed. Tony Laramie, I'm telling you, he's a freak. Like when I catch, I have heavyweights and I'm working with a heavyweight boxer. And then you feel little Tony, who's supposed to be fighting at 125. I don't even know the last time I was 125. And and then, man, I'm talking about heavy-handed. Like there's some guys that they're just heavy-handed. They just, I'd heard that when I was early in my career, my boxing career. You would hear coaches say that. And I had so many tremendous coaches from guys in Canada to guys in the States. And just you'd hear those things, but you just didn't get it until you start feeling it. You know what I mean? Or someone would crack you when you're sparring. But some of the guys I do pads with, it's like, damn, dude, if you could land that, it's good night, Irene.
Absolutely. Yeah, working with all these guys, do you ever wonder how you'd make out as a MMA fighter?
All the time. All the
What do you
time.
think? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, when you see it on this side now, going, okay, not hands, with legs, with kicks, with elbows, with the spinning stuff.
I think I would just kick. My legs are so long, as you can see. Like I have no torso. My chin is on the table here, but I would just kick. I just think kicks are fantastic. You have beautiful range with them. But I guess in my mind, like when I was fighting and people would ask me for autographs or pictures or stuff, it made me, I don't know if it's the Canadian in me, it made me so uncomfortable. You know what I mean? I just felt, that humbleness takes over. But as I feel it as a coach, I can help all of these people be champions as opposed to just doing it for myself. And so I like the idea of coaching because you can just help so many people. And I'm cool with them shining. I don't need to be, it doesn't have to be about me. I like it to be about
Reno's
them.
the same way. I find a lot of the high level coaches are the people that they just stay away.
Well, I think
You
it just
don't
depends
get
on your
them on-
personality too, right? And so even when I would do my radio show, it was really all about who I was interviewing. Let's give them some exposure, like tell us your knowledge. And then my radio show started switching where it was like, no, we just want you to talk and your personality and talk about a subject. And I was like, this is
The
not.
pressure.
Well, it just.
Is that scripted? Sort of?
What's
On
that?
your radio show?
No.
It's just whatever comes out of your mouth.
Whatever.
Like you don't have a particular topic.
No, like you would pick a topic, but then you would address topic.
Like, would you do homework on it, or would you just?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah. I prepare for anything.
Yeah.
It's just like a fight. I mean, you don't prepare then.
I just say that because I, obviously would like to be a better podcaster, right?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
like, this is very new to me too, right? So, a lot of times I'm never prepared.
yeah.
and
The
I
more
like to be
homework you
prepared.
do, it's like it literally is the same as a fight. I mean, you were in Thailand. You were doing Muay Thai. I mean, if you didn't train for a competition, I mean, you wouldn't be at the level you could be, right? So everything is about preparation and knowledge, and it'll open up. Like, wow, I never knew that. I never knew this care to this. I never knew or whoever you're.
Favorite fighter?
Oh my God! You mean anyone I train?
Yeah, good answer. That's a great answer.
I have tremendous people. I'm so proud of all of them. Like really, like they would say, "Oh God, she's a hard ass. She's the meanest person I've ever met. She's the meanest Canadian on the planet." Like I hear all this stuff all the time. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
It's because I don't see that side of you, but
Like-
like we have a working relationship, right?
Right.
So I don't. I'm not cracking pads with you or getting yelled at.
But they'll
so.
say like, "Did you just compliment me? Is that a backwards compliment?" Like I think I'm a little bit marine mentality. Like I break them down to build them up, kind of thing. And I think you train differently. I mean, you don't see many women, right? So it's and I'm rough on them but it's just my personality. Because when I trained and when I played all my sports, I mean, I played 8 sports every year in high school, kind of thing. Like I
Mhm.
was always an athlete. I was busting my butt. I was doing the extras. I was always like there first and stayed till the end and asking the coach and trying to get better and doing the road work and whatever else it took to be better. And so I have that expectation of them.
Mhm.
And for me, if you can't hang with that mentality, then go because
It's
you
not for
know,
you.
no,
Yeah.
it's not because I think even if you're not going to the UFC or not going high level, what you do in everyday life is your legacy. So even if you work a crappy job, if you're just like, well, I hate my boss, I'm going to do a shitty job, it's really a reflection on you as a human. So
Mhm.
that's my expectation of them. Every day you come in the gym, I don't care what problems you have. Everyone's been through it. I mean, I've been through hell and back. And
Mhm.
so you have to leave that at the door. You come in, you give me 110%. When you go back out, you can start thinking about it again. But you
Mhm.
have to be really present and, give me everything that you have because I'm going to give you everything in my entire soul, so
Commitment.
I
Yeah.
want it, I
They
want it
need
back.
that. Good for you.
Yeah.
That's incredible to take on that role. And you've had so many fights, and you show like zero signs of head trauma.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
my nose is a little crooked, but luckily it was
it
put back.
doesn't look
I was
crooked,
headbutted, but
but ultimately, like you're very articulate. You're smart. You can talk. Like you've been very lucky.
yeah.
Some people haven't been that lucky because they've taken too many punches to the head. That's a lot of fights. Where your fighting style was it just never got hit,
I
or
think most people typically, it depends in the boxing world. A lot of it is about sparring. It's not even about the fights. It's
Mhm.
not you're not getting this concussion or this injury or this brain bleed or whatever the case may be
Mhm.
because of that fight. I mean, it's depending on what gym you come out of. I mean, you battle some gyms you battle every day. That was
Mhm.
the big shift to the MMA world for me. It was like some guys spar once a week or twice
Mhm.
a week, and for me, it was like you walked in my gym and it was like, who am I boxing today? You sparred every single day. And
Mhm.
you'll see some of the high end fighters, like they'll say, I just don't, I can't do that kind of sparring anymore.
Mhm.
Every single day, battle, battle, battle. So they'll have an ebb and flow, right? So I don't know. It's more about, the sparring. And I always had
Mhm.
hard sparring because I was always sparring guys and things like that. But I don't know. It just, maybe the back injury was a blessing. You just never know, right? The way
Yeah.
the way life works and
Because I
things like
always
that
worry about that. You know,
with
am
all
I
of the
am yeah
athletes.
am I the
Contributing.
contributing to a demise?
I mean, I go through that too. I think as a coach because
Mhm.
I don't see what people that are out of the fight world see. Like they're
Mhm.
looking at, oh my god, that person's getting hit. Da, 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 da. I'm more looking like, well, why did you shift to the left? That you made you susceptible. Like I'm not looking. Mine is really looking at a chess match. I'm
Mhm.
not looking at it in that way that people who are viewing it,
Mhm.
and they get. I think that's why I like commentating and explaining like what's going on, what they're doing well, what the other person should be doing, because
Mhm.
it gives someone a different set of eyes to watch the fight. And it gets like really exciting, for them as opposed to it just looking like kind of a battle,
Mhm.
and things like that. I the commentating is the most fun for me. I mean, it's been tough. Sometimes I've had some serious athletes in big fights and had to commentate. I mean, in MMA is a little different than boxing. Boxing, I would be like the exclusive trainer.
Mhm.
MMA, I have faith in some of my other guys and people that are cornering. But I literally would take my headset off and like be screaming at them. You know what I mean?
Wow.
there's been
So when
times I've
you
been.
so when you watch TJ and Tony, the guys that you work with, and you're doing the commentating, do you have to turn off the switch of try not to be to try to be biased,
Um, the,
or is it just you just call it how you see it?
I often I call it how I see it. You do run in like I've had messages sent to me after shows, people saying, "Why do you hate me?" or "Why are you so rough on me?" and da da
Mhm.
da da. And if they ever say that to me, I will say, "You need to go back through the fight. You need to listen to what I said and fix what I was saying." You know what
Mhm.
I mean? Like
I did
I'll
have a
get it.
complaint
Yeah.
once.
Oh, did.
I did. I did have a complaint. Here, I'm dropping on her live. Um, and it was one of the first Windsor fight in June. And it was a comment that you made about the guy was called. He said it was he was a brown belt, and he was like so much for his brown belt. And you said oh, it's a dirty white belt. And it was kind of like it was kind of a joke, but they were really
Oh,
upset.
I don't
They were
remember.
super upset about
I
it.
can't remember like last weekend, so I
Yeah,
have
and
no
but when
idea.
I like I smoothed it over with them. I said, I don't think she wasn't saying that to be malicious. I think she was really like if you listen to what he said, she was just kind of like playing off of what he was saying to kind of
Yeah,
make
I
a
don't
joke.
apologize. I
Yeah.
like to anybody. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm gonna call what I see, and if you want, I don't like hearing commentators
Mhm.
who are such fanboys. And I'm saying boys because I don't see many female commentators.
Mhm.
It drives me crazy. Like if I'm in on my couch and we're watching TV and all I hear is, they're literally like, I know we went through this with Cody Stamen,
Mhm.
UFC fighter, like, and his first kind of one of his early fights in the UFC, and it was supposed to be this French phenom, and all they could do was talk about this guy that they wanted to promote. And I was like, how are they missing all this stuff? And Cody won the fight,
Mhm.
but it was like, it would,
They favored the other guy.
yeah.
Just
And it's like, if you already go in with that mindset of who you like and who
Mhm.
you're trying to promote and who you're trying to be best friends with, I don't need to be friends with any of these people. I have enough friends. So it's
Mhm.
like, I want to just call it how I see it. And
Mhm.
then
And that's what I like about you.
I have to watch, though, that I'm not extra critical on my guys if they're fighting
Mhm.
because I'm seeing something different. Like, I know he's capable of this. Like, I'll say, he should be doubling up that right hand or he should be finishing up with his left hook, a clean up
But
hook.
it's right though.
Like,
You should. I like that
but
though.
I mean, I'm extra hard on them because I know what
Mhm.
they're capable of and what they should be doing. And I'm almost saying it in terms of how I would be coaching in the corner.
Yeah.
Like,
But they also know that
yeah.
too.
I
Like
mean,
anyone that trains with you should know that
yeah, yeah,
if
yeah.
you are being critical of them on the mic,
Yeah.
it's not because you're trying to be mean. It's just because you care for them.
And I mean, if anyone's heard me announce or commentate or coach, I mean,
Mhm.
I will make jokes too. Like, and I mean, I
Mhm.
have people that I've commentated with before. Like, we will, you joke about it, you make it entertaining. I'm not here to make you sound like a superstar. If you're not performing like a superstar, we're also here to entertain. And when you
Mhm.
hear entertaining commentators, it makes the show so much better to watch.
Mhm.
That's another element. You know what I mean? Just like Pete Trevino, he's a great announcer.
I love Pete.
I love Pete, and we have been together for 100 years. Like
Mhm. How do you know Pete?
we started with XTC together like 10 years ago
Mhm.
or whatever. So when I started commentating, he was the announcer, and we had a tremendous relationship. I have so
Mhm.
much respect for him as an announcer. I think he's great. His voice is great. And, he's part of the show. And that's same thing as commentators. I'm not
Mhm.
here to like boost you up and say all these great things you're doing if you're doing some stuff wrong. So
Mhm.
you should be able to take away, watch your film and take away something from it, like from commentators as well. Like they were saying, oh, I should have done this and I should have done that. Just to
Mhm.
make you better, kind of things like that. So I'm okay with like, because
Yeah.
you'll hear the odd, thing. Oh, you were hard on me, or you were this, or you were that. And I was like, then you should have performed better.
Mhm.
Like it's just one of those things where
It's true though.
yeah,
You're not
gonna,
wrong.
yeah, you're gonna hear that, right? And
Mhm.
so, I mean, I've had times where if we're really hard on somebody, then you kind of have to pull back and be like, okay, this is a human too. This is a
Yeah.
person, and like let's look at some of the things they're doing well. So there's a balance. It's an endless balance because again, if it's your fighter, you have to watch. If it's people that you don't know, but you're trying to keep push the idea of like you should watch this fight. It's exciting.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think there's always a balance of making the show better.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Lucia Riker or Christy Martin?
Lucia Riker. Yeah.
Honestly, I was a huge Lucia Riker fan too.
Yeah. She was we were in camp together
So
in
you trained with her?
California. Yep.
That's
we were in
amazing.
camp together.
How was that?
It was cool. Like we was just working out. Like we didn't spar or anything.
Can you explain to people if they don't know who Lucia Riker is?
She was just initially kickboxer, but then a women's boxing champion. And we were both under Emmanuel Stewart. And we were in California together. I was at the Klitschko. We were actually, we missed each other at the Lennox Lewis training camp in the Poconos. And then I was at the Klitschko training camp. Klitschko's are like superstar Ukrainians, right? Fought Lennox Lewis. So that's an easy way to remember the older brother. So I was in camp with them in California, and she came down and trained. Then she and I flew together to Mississippi to watch Layla Ali fight Christy Martin. So we did a few things together, like here and there. But
That's amazing.
She was often out of town and things like
Yeah.
that. But when she was in town, we would, we have little camps or things like that together. And she was a beast. Like she was kind of just that go kill mentality. I think Christy just had a different path. Like women's boxing wasn't as big, and I think there was a lot of mismatches along the way. I think she was a tremendous fighter, to be honest.
It's terrible kind of what happened to her, right? Like in the end.
In terms of?
Didn't her boyfriend try to kill her?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
He stabbed her or
all
something a bunch of times, I think.
Domestic
Yeah,
stuff,
I think it was really bad. I think it ended her career or something like that.
Yeah, I think they both did a lot. I think Christy Martin, because she was under Don King and she was given a lot of publicity, she
Mhm.
did even more, in terms of women's boxing. Because if you said Christy Martin, people would know. Lucia Riker, they may not. You'd
Mhm.
have to be an aficionado a little bit
Yeah,
to
Lucia
know
Riker
that.
was like my favorite female boxer,
Yeah,
and I used to debate this with my ex-girlfriend years ago because she was a Christy Martin fan.
yeah,
I was like, Lucia Riker would kill her. Like she's a different beast, a different animal.
yeah.
And then we had that debate all the time. So I just kind of wanted to see your perspective.
It was just for me. Some of the women then were tremendous too. Like when she and
Mhm.
I went down to see Layla Ali fight, and she fought Christy Martin. I mean, it was a ridiculous fight, right? It was way too different in terms of weight classes, but we had a chance. Ann Wolf was there, and she was ridiculous, like
Mhm.
so good. And there was a lot of like good fighters along the way. It's just you didn't always have the competition, right? It
Mhm.
would, and so they didn't get really the platform that they could have got,
Mhm.
right?
Is the pay structure different for females?
100%.
Yeah, so they get paid less.
Well, it's
A lot
kind
less.
of
Is it
yeah, it's
real?
a
Like the
lot
gender
less.
gap on that? Is it
I
why
feel like
why do you think?
that's really a tricky thing for me because there should be equality,
Mhm.
However, it's like anything. If you're not really see, when you look at things like soccer or tennis, and you're seeing that they're generating like the Bianca Andreescu's, like you're generating this, if not more, the same if not more amount of fans and viewership, and why are you not getting paid the same or more?
Mhm.
But I mean, I can understand where it comes to like if the ratings, if you just don't have the ratings, then it's tough to justify the equality.
Mhm.
But it's a chicken or egg thing. If you start dumping money in, then you're promoting them more and you're marketing them better and you're getting better opposition. You're putting money into these leagues, then the women can get better. They're not going to have that like WNBA. You have the second job all year round, like you're doing this all year round, or our women's hockey teams. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? That are
Is
kind of
WNBA still around?
yeah.
I don't watch basketball at all.
But like even our women's hockey team, like they
Mhm.
dissolved because they're like, no, until you can fund it, until you can start supporting us, And so I
Mhm.
think it's a really a chicken or the egg. I think if we dumped a bunch of money in it, you can make anything exciting. I mean, because they put women's tennis on a certain level, uh, that that's why they're generating a lot of views and they're generating money. But
Mhm.
I still think there's always that inequality, right? That we have to get
Mhm.
through and get past.
Yeah, I always wondered that. I wasn't sure, and I've never really known a female professional boxer, so I couldn't really ask.
Well, yeah, it was bizarre. Like when I was fighting, there would be most of the fans were coming to see me. Oh, there's that white girl from Kronk. We got to go watch her fight.
Mhm.
And but yeah, the guys were always making more than me. And they
Mhm.
may not bring as many fans. So but it was that old school mentality of like women don't make as much as men.
Mhm.
So that that element was always frustrating. That was always frustrating
Yeah.
because if anything, a lot of the women and female fighters I've seen them work harder. You know what I mean? Because you're always trying to prove yourself.
Mhm.
So I've seen the amount of work that goes into it, right, to get a desired outcome. So,
Mhm.
and you're with men most often, so you're always having to work harder to be faster and stronger and
Mhm.
better and more technical. So, I think there's that element too.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess you never really had a lot of female sparring partners.
No, no,
Like
no, no,
never.
no. Here and there. I mean,
Mhm.
it was incredibly rare. I
Mhm.
mean, incredibly rare. I mean, it was a bit of a deficit for me
Mhm.
because I was working with athletes that were the men were very technical and were throwing stuff perfect. I was a very technical fighter. My first coach, he's working with Team USA right now, but my first coach was very technical and kind of
Mhm.
OCD like I am, and maybe that's where it came from. But um, so I was very technical, but then I would get into fights and I'm learning how to counter and slip and blah, 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 and you move around stuff. But then I was fighting girls and it was very different at the time. Like girls were swinging. I mean, haymakers, like they would come at you so aggressive. Anytime I fought someone with a lot of amateur experience, it was an easy fight for me because they
Mhm.
fought perfect. You know what I mean? They threw nice shots, very technical. And
Mhm.
if it was someone that didn't have as much experience, they were just coming swinging shots. And
Mhm.
those were way harder. I mean, you'll see people where
It's so
I'll
true.
fight someone 17-0 and it's a breeze for me. Someone who's
Mhm.
500 and I'm like, God damn, I don't know where a shot's coming from. It's like a
Yeah.
left hip. It's so much more difficult. But you see that in MMA.
Mhm.
So
I've had
that's,
this conversation before
have
with
you?
coaches, and because I've always said that it's harder to fight a guy who doesn't know how to fight
Oh,
because you're used to a straight punch is a straight punch, to slip a straight punch.
yeah.
Well, try slipping a punch that a guy throws the most awkward jab ever, and then he's
Yeah.
a wild punch after, and then a looping one, and then you don't know where it's coming from, as opposed to where it's perfect technique.
Well, the most unfortunate thing for you is being the athlete and going, okay, well, I'm 17 0, I'm fighting a girl that's 500, or you put someone else in this position, right? So there's a guy and he's this top prospect and he's fighting some 500 fighter just coming in, and everyone's has this great expectation of him looking like a superstar. It's like, these people make you fight ugly. They make you look terrible sometimes when you fight. You're getting hit in the back of the ear, the back of the head. I mean, it's one of those things that it becomes super unfortunate because you're supposed to look great and roll through this person, but they make you look bad, right? And I always say that when my athletes, if I've watched their opponents and I see there's like, it's like haymakers coming, I'm like, dude, you have to do this or else they will make you look like a terrible fighter. You know what I mean? They will make you fight their fight.
Stay
because
composed.
They're so awkward.
Don't fall into their game.
Right.
Prince Nazim Hamed was one of those ones. Roy Jones Jr. is another one. The same thing, because they're so unorthodox. I'm not saying that they didn't have technique. I'm just saying, like, in general, because they were so different that most guys didn't just keep the boxing form, they would try to emulate them or mirror them, and that's how they got smoked out. And then it was Marco Antonio Barrera with Prince Nazim Ahmed, who when there was, I love the boxing back in the 90s, where everybody watched football and hockey. I didn't give a shit about it. It was boxing.
It's De La Hoya for me.
Really?
Yeah.
I never liked De La Hoya.
But see, I think a lot of it was
Arturo Kadey.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on what you're looking for. De La Hoya was very technical and used his jab so well. Gotti was like gonna bring you a show, like exciting, right? But I think depending on what my coach was into that, so we all would kind of watch depending on what their influences. Like parents, like if your parents are watching the Leafs, you're a Leafs fan. If they're watching the Red Wings, you're a Red Wings fan. I mean, it was kind of like that. But those fights back in the day were exciting. De La Hoya I liked. I mean, just watching them snap that jab and spoil some like great fighters, like legends, take them down. And I have athletes, I'm not going to say who, but I have athletes that are left-handed that fight orthodox, right? So you train those people differently. You want to capitalize on the fact that their power hand is forward. You want to make them shift over. And those are the other little things that you have and nuances that you have to know as a coach, right? Right-handed, left-handed, which way do you stand, which is your strength, weaknesses, and Oscar De La Hoya
this is the kind of conversations I want to have with you, because I want people to really understand how experienced you are.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's not like I just picked the chick to put on a mic. You know what I mean? Oh, I put this chick in there. She like, you actually know what you're talking about and what you're doing. It's actually incredible.
Yeah. I mean, it's just fun how it all can work together. You bring the broadcasting, bring the coaching, bring the, former fighter. Because it's hard to know. It's interesting with MMA too, because even though I didn't fight MMA, I will, when I first was commentating and I would see a body lock, I was like, I don't get it. And then I told my friend, James Lee, a very close friend of mine who has so much experience. I was like, you need to put me in a body lock. I don't understand
what it is.
how like it impacts you, right? And so then I was like, I get it. Like every breath you take in, it sinks in deeper. You can't breathe even more. I mean, it was just some of those movements that I can, even being, kicked in the junk. That's the one thing I'll even defer to my partner. I'd be like, what? There's certain things that I'm not going to experience, but there's the majority of things. Other than that, I will have I've been there, done that. You have a great round, you come out, you have a terrible round. You see a guy that was looking great, and they take the next fight, their next round, they're not doing anything. And I'm like, I've been there. I took a round. You take rounds off to regenerate. Like, I mean, there's things that as an athlete you've been through, been there, done that helps with the commentating and coaching as well.
Wow, that's incredible. It's just cool to see like your side,
Well, I mean, I guess I'm used to it. I think I had a single mom growing up. I had a single mom growing up, so I think that I never saw that women and men, there was this big parity. Yeah, like I didn't. And so, I mean, I noticed it when I go to a UFC event or something and they're handing out our wristbands and, I get everything, Jamie. I'm like, am I the chiropractor? Am I the nutritionist? Am I the girlfriend? Am I the wife? Most recently, mom. So that broke my heart.
Does it piss you off? Like, do you feel like you're not taken serious?
For me, I think it's motivating because I'm like, you'll know. You'll hear the name Caro, you'll know. Or you'll see a blonde girl in a guy's corner who's high-end, top 10, and be like, that must be Caro. Like, that's kind of where I want to, not just for myself, but for women in general. Like, I think women and men are a little bit different how we approach a lot of things in life. I know this from having a boy and a girl, at home, 3 and 6. And I think I think women have a lot that they could bring to the table in terms of coaching. You know what I mean? You start to see women coaching in the NBA and things like that. I think women, it doesn't take long to gain the respect. Like I could spend an hour with you, and all of a sudden you're like, dang, she knows her shit. You know what I mean? Like you.
Do you know
that's
of any
it.
other female coaches?
No, but I do know when we fought, I think it was Alejandro Perez, Cody Stamen fought him in the UFC. You know, he had a female in his corner, and that was very rare. Like you'd never really saw, unless oftentimes it was, if you did see a woman, it was a wife or something like that. But she was actually a coach, and she's some high level.
Did you give her like the "we understand each other" nod?
Well, it was kind of like, I think we both look. You could tell we had respect for each other, even though we didn't, because you could hear each other calling shots and things like that. But she's some high level wrestling coach that's, you know, employed by a lot of different athletes at that level. So, I mean, she's the only other one I've seen. One other female I saw, she was the wife of one of the fighters. But so that's kind of the
So you're
presumption.
you're a rarity.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah,
Until, you know,
it's
what
only
I
a
mean?
matter of time.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a matter of time.
it's good because you're kind of setting the benchmark that, you know, because you corner such high level guys, that it's. I mean, even the first time I ever heard of you, and I was like, "Hey, Kara, who's that?" Oh, dude, she's like a high level boxer. She coaches Stamen and the Crookshank. They were naming up, and I was like, "Really?" And then good old Google, and then I was like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah, I think I'm more well known in the States because that's where I fought, and that's where my, you know, training has been out of. Other than, you know, I trained in.
Because I thought you were American.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't learn you were Canadian until tonight. Actually.
And I'm true Canadian. I mean, I'm talking about
like
northern, a
real
northern
Canadian.
girl, Sudbury, Ontario. Yeah.
How long you been in Windsor?
95. I went for university.
Okay.
I was like, okay, most southern point in Canada. I'm always cold.
Yeah.
Windsor. And they had a good volleyball team too. So that was my kind of selection initially. And from there, it was like, the first time I went to Windsor, I was like, that's the United States of America? Like, it's right there. It was the most bizarre thing ever.
It's amazing because they're completely two different places.
Yeah.
A river separates them, and it's really
two different. Night and day. However, Windsor's very different than the rest of Ontario, I find. Like, being a northern girl, God, do I ever recognize the differences when I came down, like how we spoke, just the different mindset. Windsor is kind of a hybrid, I would say. They're not like pure Canadian. They're not American, but they're just this blend.
They're definitely different. I see it just, you know, doing shows here in London and going off to Windsor as my first out of town show, and I noticed just the warm reception of the crowd, the fans, the sponsorship, even like everything.
It's
the
more,
sell of MMA was so much easier in Windsor than it is in London,
it's
being a conservative town.
Yeah, it's sports minded, right? Because you're across from Detroit. So when, like my radio show or whatever, you're competing with America. Like you're not competing with London and Toronto and Ottawa. You are competing with America, and it's very different. So when I was always commentating in the States, and it was very exciting and exuberant and enthusiastic. And whoa, did you see that shot? Like, no, he got dropped with it. And then when I was commentating the Olympics for TSN, it was like I would get excited, be like, you know, it was given the take her down.
Wow. What was that like?
Commentating
for the Olympics?
I loved it. It was great. I mean, it was great. They're so professional. I remember the one thing that still resonated with me for like today. They said 99% accurate is 100% wrong, and I was like, you really had to be on point. You know what I mean? And
it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it was a lot of pressure, but you know, pushing that kind of perfectionist attitude, which was really cool. And I mean, it was just really neat to be able to do that and be a part of the first ever women's boxing in the Olympics and things like that. But it was very different. It was very downplayed. Like we're Canada's very like, watch the show Friends. The U.S. is like Desperate Housewives. Like there's a difference between, like, it's almost like reality TV. Everything has to be extra and over the top. And whereas we're just so much more reserved, right? We're worried about people's feelings, and it's just a different mentality. That's why with the commentating, you'll hear that, like, if Canada, U.S. is very different. Canada, you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. You don't want to say anything to bother someone. Like you said, someone was bothered by something I said. I mean, I'm so used to the States where you're going to bother someone every time. And I have a guy that I've commentated with for a number of years that, like, he's extremely funny, and he'll say stuff that I just, you know what I mean? That you're just like, you know, that's gonna get back to that person, but it's entertaining to listen to. So it's again a balance. And Windsor's very like I said, a hybrid type
Yeah.
of city.
No, I love Windsor. They've been
Yeah.
very welcoming to me, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, that's why I have the best of both worlds, right? I live in Canada, but I get an opportunity to be in the States where sports is, I mean, you look at their fields, you look at a high school football field is, you know,
10,000 seats.
yeah, minimum. I mean,
Yeah, and
that's
they blow it
minimum. I
away. It's
mean, it's
crazy.
just, sports is on a whole other level, which is why 100% where it's easier to sell, like, they're so sports minded.
Mhm.
That was the most bizarre thing, like being a Northern girl going to Windsor, and I was like, you cheer for the Tigers? You
Mhm.
cheer for the Red Wings? These are American teams. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't get it. I didn't, and it took a while being, involved in Windsor to realize we're kind of Windsor, Detroit. I
Mhm.
mean, I cross almost every day. I mean, it's right there. It's
Mhm.
closer than
How do you
Windsor.
balance that? Family. I mean, like kids and
Yeah.
training and work. I mean, you seem to have like one of the most next to mine. I look at it, I'm like,
Yeah.
because I can never get a hold of you sometimes. And then a lot of people tell me, oh, she's always busy, man.
Ye-
Good luck trying to catch her. And I luck out sometimes when I do reach you. But how do you do that?
I think my first priority, I think what you have to do in anything in life is set your first priority. Like,
Mhm.
you have to have your list of like, what does this serve me? So it's like saying yes or no to things.
Mhm.
Does this serve me? Yes or no? My ultimate goal. My ultimate goal is number one with my kids. Then it was to be a high-end fighter, coach,
Mhm.
to make all of my fighters successful. And then it was my job. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And it's unfortunate if you're a number three, but like today, for example, and I trained a bunch of fighters this morning. You know quite a few of them that I train, but my son came with me, and he runs around, and my fighters play with them, and you know what I mean. It's just
Mhm.
I'll drag them along with me, and I love it, and I really prefer. My kids aren't on the tablet and the phone all day. Obviously, as a parent, that's a nice break for you. Hey, I got to take a shower, watch this. Or,
Yeah.
we all
Yeah.
need that as a break.
Mm.
It's just their form of TV, what we had growing up. But for me, if my kids are in a gym and they see fitness as a lifestyle and that's just normal,
Mhm.
then that's a win for me. That's huge for me. It's huge for me having a daughter and her seeing me like boss around a bunch of dudes. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's
And
cool.
just
It's
like,
empowering. It's
yeah,
Do you notice it in her confidence?
yeah, 1,000%.
Mhm. When you were a kid growing up, did you have that kind of confidence push from your mom?
You know what's bizarre? When I was a kid, I was read to a lot, and I read a lot, and we went through a series of books. We had all these inspiring books, so it would be Helen Keller, Louis Pasteur, all these names, Terry Fox, and
Mhm.
we'd read all these books, Jackie Robinson, where I felt like I took a lot from that, like learning as a very young kid that there's always going to be obstacles, and there's always going to be things in your way that seem like limits, but don't allow there to be any limitation on what
Mhm.
you want to do. And when you saw all these people and heard these names and things like that doing so well and breaking through barriers and stuff like that, like that's kind of the mindset I had. I remember quoting Harriet Tubman to like friends when I was really young because we were going through something. We are trying to put a tent up and it kept falling down and it was raining. And I started, what Harriet Tubman, like I was just ridiculous stuff
Wow.
when I was a kid.
Mhm.
But it was like, it's really early exposure that kind of sets the stage for you.
Mhm.
And then I started to see, and I used to be like, oh crap. Like, I want to be a professional athlete and they're only boys.
Mhm.
And I was like, I was kind of bummed. I rejected wearing pink and anything that was kind of girly because I wanted to pursue something that you didn't see women doing. And then Wimbledon would be on, and I would see Martina Navratilova and Steffi Graf, and I was like, God, women are on TV playing sports. And then
Mhm.
Jackie Joyner-Kersee, my daughter's named after her, and FloJo, and all these like tremendous women were on TV. And I was
Mhm.
like, I can do it. I can be female and be a professional athlete, and I
Mhm.
can, take that
Are
course.
you an only child?
No, I have a younger sister, but
Okay.
she's
Is she
not.
into athletes?
Not at
Athletic?
all.
No. Right?
No, we kind of went different directions, growing
Mhm.
up. So, but yeah, she went a different way. But yeah, just sports was like my safe haven. That's why I always
Mhm.
really encourage young girls to get into it because I feel like anytime I had trouble in my family or with friends or anything else, it was like, okay, I'll just go to the basketball
You
court.
needed an outlet.
Yeah, and it was a positive outlet, right? I mean, it can get to the like turn a corner. I had a training addiction for a while, which sounds really bizarre. A lot of people won't get it unless you've been there, where it's any addiction is just obsessive thinking. And I would wake up at 3 a.m, which I think exasperated like back injuries and several injuries. But wake up at 3 a.m, and you got to go to the bathroom, and then I would say, "Oh my God, there's a 24-hour gym," and I would literally drive to the gym at 3, 4 in the
Wow.
morning. Like I was like,
Committed.
Yeah, and just like
I think you have to be
yeah,
successful.
you're almost a bit crazy.
You have to
Every fighter
obsess.
that, or
Yeah.
high-end athlete has made a lot of sacrifices. So, but I think with the busy schedule is I try and set my priorities and it gives you the ability to say no to
Mm.
certain things. And I think if you know what those are, you say, okay, well, they're asking me to do this. Is that going to impact, my kids, my coaching, or my
Mm.
job? And that has helped in terms of being super busy. Drag the kids along and just kind of
Yeah.
show them what it is to try and achieve because they see my fighters busting their butts, sweating, exhausted.
And that's
And
mommy to them. Your mommy.
yeah, but
Wow.
they wouldn't know a difference. Like my kids, I don't think they wouldn't know a difference between color and gender and all of
Mm.
those things. They just like realize doesn't matter who you are, what you look like. Is if you work your butt off, you'll get there. And I
Mm.
think that's kind of the only thing that they see day in and day out.
Do you do mitts with them?
Yeah, I do. Like my daughter's not really into it, but she throws like tremendous punch. Like her father was a professional boxer as well.
Mhm.
He passed away. My spouse passed when she was 4 months old. We were six and a
Ah.
half years together. And so she has it naturally, like it comes within her,
Mm.
but she's girly girl. Like she wants to play Barbies and house and
Mm.
dance and all those things. But they can do it. And then my 3-year-old son, he's just a pure boy, like just jump head first off the couch, just spinning back kick to you, like throw punches, like it just,
Yeah.
they're really physical though in terms of being athletic. So
So then
that's what we do.
you'd be completely okay with them pursuing a career in fighting if that was
No,
the thing? No? I'm just curious,
no.
like on a, like on a as a parent perspective, because I know I look at my daughter and I go, yeah, I would love for her to be able to, kick a guy in the head just to protect herself, but at the same time,
Yeah,
I would never want her to fight.
I think uh, martial arts is one of the most perfect sports, like encompassing all of them,
Hmm.
for kids to learn because of dedication and discipline and confidence and all of those things.
Hmm.
I've worked with different organizations like the Sexual Assault Crisis Center and things that
Hmm.
people have been victims and. Uh, we implemented a boxing program, and I was like, "Oh my God! Anyone with depression or PTSD or those that have been victims and still kind of have that feel like they're victims. It's the most empowering thing you could do.
Hmm.
So that's the one thing I always suggest when people have been through, some struggles is get on a heavy bag. Whatever it is, because it's combat related, is very
Hmm.
different than going for a jog or playing tennis. I
Hmm.
mean, you just need to feel that expression of like power and empowerment.
Hmm. I tell my wife that.
Really?
Yeah, because
When you drive her crazy, you're like, okay, go
no,
ahead.
no, I think it's just more just the daily stresses, and I'm like, you should take boxing. I
Hmm.
think you should be great at it. I think you should be good at it because it's an outlet. You go blow off some steam,
Yes, for
you know,
sure.
and then I'm trying to get her to lighten up on me,
Yeah.
but I mean, go blow off the steam at the bag. You'll feel good about it,
Yeah.
and I've said it to her more than once. So
It's the ultimate physical exertion to me. And
yeah.
I think that our daily life, I mean, I think about my first car, and my first car was manual steering, manual windows, manual locks. And nowadays you just press a button and your car starts. I mean,
Mm.
in everyday life, the things that we're doing are not physically demanding at all, like what
Mhm.
once was, right? And everyone had stress. Back in the day, our grandparents had stress, but they were working in a field or working here, and it was cathartic. Whatever
Mhm.
work you were doing, chances are it was physical. Whether you were the stay-at-home mom back in like decades ago, and the way you were doing laundry, you were using a clothesline. When do you see clotheslines anymore? I mean, there was so
They don't
many
even allow
things.
them in. You're not even allowed to put them up in some places.
Stop,
Yeah,
really?
yeah. I think uh, the house that my wife and I just built. It was it's
That
in
was a
like
rule in
it's
your
a
lease
ruling
or
like
in the
in your
jurisdiction or whatever.
yeah, like the what's the name
Bylaw.
of it? It's like a bylaw that you can't have an outside clothesline.
But I mean, think of what everyday life was. How we got food, how we
Hmm.
cleaned food, how we prepared food. Like, I mean, it just is one of those things that everyday life was physically taxing and that was cathartic. Like any
Hmm.
stress you had, it was exerted. Nowadays, there's nothing. I mean, we spend the whole day sitting down at a desk or a computer, and then you go home and you feel tired because you've been sedentary all day. And I think these are the kind of activities I think will be beneficial for anyone, and especially like I say with my kids, if you're going through a bad time, sports to me are so important. I know other
Hmm.
people have arts or music and things like that. But for me, it's just, you get that physical outlet that everyone needs, everyone on the planet. I don't care if you're sports minded or not. You
Hmm.
have to have that physical exertion.
Exercise
Yeah.
of
And I mean,
something. Yeah.
and especially hitting the bag. Like when I was playing volleyball at the university, and I started boxing, I started hitting the ball like it was like insane. I
Like it was a
remember,
head.
yeah, like
Yeah.
some of my girlfriends that I played club with, they said, God, it's crazy how hard you're hitting that ball now. And it was
Mhm.
just boxing. It was the cross training. And I think
Mhm.
for my kids, I would like it to be cross training for whatever they plan on doing, and then it's the confidence and empowerment too.
Mhm. Where do you think it'd be if you never went down that road? If you just did the volleyball, you didn't have a boyfriend that wanted to do boxing. Like, how do you think your life would be different, or do you think no matter what, you would have fell into this?
No, I don't know. I mean, that's the weird thing about
It's a
life,
hard
right?
question.
Yeah, because I think I would have been teaching or coaching on some level of
Mhm.
something. Like I think that's what I was destined to do. I was destined to teach
Mhm.
and give of myself that way. And I think that's a calling for me, whatever direction it was
Mhm.
going to be in. I think I was always going to be in a gym or doing fitness somehow because I think after I retired once during my career, and I just refused to do anything. I was like, it was my job being physically fit for so long that I refused to do anything. And I ended up getting depression, which is weird because I know
Mhm.
everyone talks about mental health, but it was like legit. I thought I was sick. I thought I was dying of cancer. I'm like, what is this? And I went to the doctor and he finally said, you have depression. I was like, can't be. I'm like the happiest person I know. And he was like,
Mhm.
and I just realized the importance of being in the gym and being physical and those kind of things. And it was like, I bounced back right away when I started
Mhm.
implementing that. And I'm like, physical fitness is food. I mean, it's life. I mean, it gives you life and it keeps you young and it keeps you strong. And so I think I would have been have to be in a gym in some facet. And I think I would
Mhm.
have been teaching. But who knows? I probably would be making way more money than I am coaching or being
Yeah.
involved in this sport. But, probably on some sort of circuit speaking, I wanted to be a professor. I applied for my
Mhm.
PhD in IO psychology, which is like sports psychology for business people. And
Mhm.
so I
Does
probably
sports psychology work?
I think so.
Mhm.
I think I think any sort of psychology you can bring to the table. I mean, I have a psych degree
Mhm.
and that's what I was pursuing my PhD in. So and I think it's helpful. I mean, it's like anything. I mean, I'm a very faithful person, so and I'll talk to some of my athletes about that. Like they may not be faithful initially and I'll talk about prayer and meditation and things like that
Mhm.
and they'll
Words of affirmation
yeah, things like
and
that. I mean, if you keep saying something, I think we all have, you're all on a different vibration, and you'll know
mhm.
when you meet someone and they just like lift you, right? And
Mhm.
I think that's what's the different. If you have the positive affirmations and positive thinking and the expectation of good things happening, you vibrate on that level and it comes to you. And I
Mhm.
think not enough people do that. Like people dissect a situation like poor me. Everything is victim mentality nowadays. Whereas I mean, for me, I've always been the opposite. So I was robbed at gunpoint in Detroit in my boxing gym at midnight, and three guys had me down with guns and things like that. And
Wow.
then, I mean, luckily I
Mhm.
survived. But afterwards, everyone was freaking out, like, God, you have to go to therapy. You're gonna be completely messed up and paranoid. And literally, my mindset was like, well, I should have hit the top lock. Like I should have had that on, because we would have a top lock and a baseball bat on top
Mhm.
of the locks that we had. And I also remember saying, like, really? Why should I be depressed? Why should I be bummed out? Why should I be sad? Why should I think poor me? Guess what's happening to me tomorrow? I'm going to my morning show. I'm, going to
Mhm.
see, my friends. Guess where these guys are headed? Jail or death. Like I
Mhm.
kind of, I feel like that switch in mentality is like a lot of the psychology of things like this, right? And so
Mhm.
even I bring that to the table when it comes to my athletes. Like if you aren't successful, start looking in the mirror. Stop blaming your coaches, stop blaming your teammates, stop blaming everyone around you. Look in the mirror and figure out what you're doing wrong and what you could be doing more.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I really, sports psychology is about accountability, seeing the positive, what you can take out of it, and looking at the weaknesses. Great, I have an opportunity for growth.
Mhm.
So it doesn't have to be such a damning thing. Everyone's, takes L's here and there, but what were the L's due to? You know what I mean? What,
Mhm.
did,
To make you better.
yeah, I mean, and that's the
Failure
thing.
makes you better.
Yeah, and I
Mhm.
mean, whether you have a big taste of it or a little taste of it, I mean, it's
Mhm.
something you can walk away with and determine if that's going to be your end or you're going to push past it. Because there's athletes out there that have taken those L's, and I mean, what's his name? What's the wrestler who was 0-4 out of Alberta? Oh gosh, but anyways, like I would look at someone like him. He fought on TKO and he fought a lot of the top guys, and he was 0-4, and he just busted his butt to get back and to be
Uh,
at the top, right? Eh,
Jesse?
yeah,
Um, Am I right, Jesse?
Yes.
Arnett?
Or Jesse Arnett. Yeah,
That's
thank
right.
you.
Okay.
You know, I think of someone like that like
Mhm.
anyone else may have quit. But there's a lot of guys like that.
Mhm.
And where I've had guys that were really at the top and you knew they were like so close to the UFC. They took 1 or 2 L's. You know, they faced like a Johnny Bedford who, you know, just,
Mhm.
you know, and they take an L and they just quit. Whereas someone will take a fight like that of some top guy, take an L and say, man, I should have done this, and go forward. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of it is just accountability. And that's where the psychology comes in.
Mhm.
A lot of people like to work on their strengths, you know, and they're like, oh, I'm so good at this and I'm so good at that. And I was like, well, but you're not here. If you want to level up, let's look at your weaknesses and let's make them better, you
Mhm.
know, and I think that's a big part of the sport psychology.
Mhm.
A lot of it is making sure how they feel about themselves before the fight is they're right on point. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? You can break them down all you want, but they have to go in with that mindset of like they're ready, you know, and prepared.
Mhm. That's amazing. You really are smart. Yeah, you know your shit. That's cool.
Thanks.
Where can people find you?
You know what? I don't do as
Social
much.
media. What if somebody
Not
wanted
as
to
much.
train with you? You don't.
People they find me. They
find
find
you.
me. Yeah. I get messages. Typically I'm on Facebook and as in my fighters joke that I'm old, right? And I get harassed about being on Facebook and I get harassed about my Android and not an iPhone because that's what all the kids use.
You have an Android? Oh, Jesus. Let's end this right now because she has an
We
Android.
should have brought
now.
this up in the beginning, you know. And typically on my Instagram is Kara Rowe 110, which stands for like 110%. If you're not going to give me 100%, don't come. Don't waste my time. But on Facebook, I'm Kara Rowe, and I have a page from my radio show that just concluded, but it's the TKO show. So, and there's a lot of people that contact me through any of those sources. My email is kararowetko@gmail.com. Like people, but oftentimes I have to turn people away. I don't want
Don't
to
have enough time.
I don't want to water down, right? It's just like, you know, I set aside time for a lot of the people that I have and I've been with for a long time. I will take in new people, but they have to work into my schedule because I've seen it. I've seen it before where, you know, someone just takes on too many people and then you're just not giving those original people that have been with you forever their time,
The same
right?
commitment.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And but I think it's important to diversify because you learn from your athletes just as they learn from you.
Mhm.
And then I see when someone has only one athlete that they're dealing with, that's when their heart gets broken too, right? They like that athlete leaves or goes somewhere or does something or gets injured, and it's really hard. I think you can have more than one athlete, but they have to get along with each other. Like I've actually broken up with, so to speak, athletes because they didn't get along in a team setting, and I was like, it's not going to work if you don't play well with others. It's not going to work because your teammates, your sparring partners, these are some of the most.
You're only as
important
good as
things.
the worst guy on the team.
Yeah, I mean, your sparring partners are so important. You know, you don't realize it. When you're fighting, you just want all the attention on you, and you don't realize how important it is that your team develops along with you because they're the ones that are going to lift you, right? They're going to end up being the reason that you're on everyone's shoulders. So you have to play well with others and be able to be coachable. I think that's the key out there.
I'm so glad you came on today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Very happy. Like I really wanted people to kind of see what you're about.
Thank you.
And you blew me away too. It's amazing. Thank you so much.
No problem.
I really appreciate it. We'll catch Kara Rowe, myself, Prospect Fighting Championships 12, December 6th, live on pay-per-view. TJ versus Cruz. It's going to be a great night.
Dude, it's going to be.
I
These
can't
guys
wait.
are ready. They're ready, and they're going to bring a great show. And I mean, it's one of those things I want to say before you sign off is like, this is such a cool opportunity to see these people live before you're paying $175 for a UFC ticket.
So
I mean,
true.
you get a chance to be like, oh my God, I saw them when, you know, and
having them fight at
elite.
home is really cool too.
Yeah,
you know,
it's
their backyard. They don't have to stay in a hotel. They cut the weight. They cut the weight at home. You know,
Yeah.
it's cool. It's fun. I love it.
Well, they just came back too from Vegas. Like they were there for a 3-month training camp, and they came to see me in California when I was there to train with me, and you know, back in their home base. And that's what they, like you said, that's what they wanted. It's nice to be home. It's a lot of pressure. I hated fighting at home. Home for me was Detroit. So much pressure. So
wow, that's a good perspective. I never really think of it. I guess because you have to perform.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, one time I remember one of my fights. It was on ESPN, and after my fight, the referee came up to me beside a Canadian patch on my trunks. You're Canadian, and I said, yeah, I am. He's like, well, someone wants to meet you. He's Canadian too. And I was like, okay, well, I'm like, who could this be? I'm in West Virginia
Mm.
fighting. And I loved fighting out of town. It was fantastic because there wasn't that pressure of your friends and family and worrying about what they're thinking and stressing if they're worried that you got hit because, for me, it wasn't a big deal. And then, so he's like, I want you to meet, do you know who Mariel Lemieux is? And I was like,
No way.
yeah. And I remember saying, well, yeah, but this ref, he's a boxing ref. He didn't really know. I was like, of course I do, and Mariel Lemieux was sitting, I'm glad I didn't know before I fought, but, sitting front row
That's so
at
cool.
this, and things like that. But thank God I didn't feel that pressure till after I competed. You know what I mean? He's the other Canadian sitting in the crowd, excited to meet me because he's, Canadian as well. So
Fucking Mario Lemieux.
it's been,
That's crazy.
it's been some, but going back to fighting at home, that's the most pressure because your friends and family are there, and those that don't really maybe know or understand fighting, you're gonna get hit. It's a fight. It's like jumping in a pool. You're gonna get wet. So that's the one thing that I remember thinking that. Like my sister was at a fight, and my mom has been at a fight, and one and only. But I mean, it was like I got hit. I thought about, oh my God, my sister's literally crying in the crowd right now. So it's just extra pressure, when you are
the
at
last
home.
fights in Windsor. One of the guys got knocked out really badly, and his dad came cage side, and he tried to go into the cage, and I stopped him. I said, "Listen, that's my son."
I know it's
and
hard.
Then he bowled past, and he went into the cage, and I said to him after backstage, I'm like, "You're not doing them any good to do that, bro. Like let the doctors hit them. Like he's been KO'd. He's okay. He's gonna be fine, but." Like
that's you talking
impeding.
as a promoter. If that was your daughter, you would have climbed the cage.
And that was honestly that was the only reason I didn't stop him.
Yeah,
he's like, that's my. He looked at me. That's my son, and I'm okay.
It's any
go
sport,
ahead,
right? If you're watching the
I
NFL,
get it. I understand.
Like someone gets hit hard, knocked out, unconscious on.
But it doesn't do anything for them. Like you running into the cage,
There's
that
you're talking emotion and logic. Logically, it doesn't do anything for them. Emotionally, you're here going, I have to get to my baby. That's our job as parents, is to protect our kids. I mean, I understand.
I didn't fault
very
him.
tough.
I didn't fault him for it, but at the
tough.
same time, it's like, we can't have moms climbing the cage to get into. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's different to me. If you have one guy who just beats up on the other guy and the parent runs in there, it's like, settle down. We're not turning this to family like mob wars. But when someone's hurt, it's like where you can completely understand their concern.
I don't know how many wives I've had to console.
Really?
Tons. I'm like, he's okay. I have to explain it to them. No, he's fine. He's gonna be good. You're good. Look, he's getting up. He's okay. He sees it. You're good. Don't worry, man. He knows what he got into. He knows what he's doing. He's gonna be fine. It happens. It's a part of the sport. It happens.
It's really funny when you talk about that, because me being a female coach, the first thing I always try and do with my athletes is befriend the wife or the girlfriend, because I never want that to be a concern for their training. If I'm what's best for them to train, I make sure that there's never any you're training with a female, where there's any sort of tension because I'm female. So I have made a point, I will Facebook message them. Hi, I'm Kara. I'm training with them. You have any questions? And I've had wives that I've had to console before a fight because he's being such an asshole. I'm like, you know how you feel when you're in PMS, when you're hangry. You're just this is where these guys are. They're training their butts off. They're not eating. They're angry. Put your earbuds in. Ignore them. Don't let them. They're looking for a fight because they're training and they're at this high level. And the anxiety before a fight, you're getting into war mentality. You're getting into kill or be killed. And they're looking to fight with you. You know what I mean? That's kind of what they're looking for. So just put your earbuds in. Don't fight. Relax. Walk away. You know what I mean? I've had to console a lot of wives or girlfriends beforehand.
Such an interesting take.
Yeah, I mean it is different because I've never want to be somebody that has ever come in between their relationship, right? Because I am female. So that's what males don't have to do, right? As a female coach, I do things very, very differently when it comes to, coaching a guy, and I just want to make sure, because the closer I am with the female, the better it is for them, because I'll say, he needs to do this right now, or he needs to do this, and they're kind of understanding.
Well, you're so experienced, and people don't see that, right? When I say they don't see that, is because they see the pretty face.
Well,
and they assume the worst. They assume, oh, she's not high level boxer. She don't know what she's people will be quick to judge, right? I'm sure you've faced that.
I get
the
called
whole
that
your whole
everything,
career,
right? Everything, girlfriend, wife, all of that.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Well, Kara, thank you so much for coming
Thanks
in.
for having
I
me.
really appreciate it.
Cool.
Have a safe drive home.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you next weekend.
Yeah, for sure.
Beautiful. This podcast is brought to you by Euro Sun Tanning Salon.
Do you suffer from eczema or psoriasis? You have acne or sore muscles? Head on in today and visit the tanning beds. They got regular and mega stand-up beds. Get that beautifully tan look that you're looking for. They also offer natural Mystic Spray Tan. You can also purchase premium products such as Australian Gold, California Tan, Designer Skin, and Swedish Beauty. There's many different packages to choose from, 6-session package or a 30-day pass, even single sessions. Sign up today in your membership and get $70 worth of product. They're located across from Masonville Mall in the Wendy's Plaza at 60 North Center Road, London, Ontario. Visit Eurosun Tanning today.